Hi guys, I have told some of you that I wanted to make this video about assertive communication, and I'll also tackle some relevant topics on how we perceive things, how to identify the way we perceive things, and the tricks that we play on ourselves and on others as well. I'll try to be mindful about the time, so that's one thing. And I also apologize if I sound funny because, I'm wearing my braces. I got a tooth pulled out yesterday and I'm still not used to any of this. So I am sorry for any mispronunciation or anything that you might feel weird. So some of the things I'm going to be covering have to do with assumptions, discussions, some tips on that, and some tips on feedback as well. And now these will probably be like a series of videos, maybe 3, I think. So I don't make them too long. So let me start with this. Communication is a process, right? So you have a source or a sender that does some encoding and then transmits or sends a message through or via channel, through a channel. Then there is the receiver, who is the person doing some decoding to get this message, right? Once the receiver gets the message, what this person has decoded, then there is going to be a reaction, a result, or an effect that's called feedback, and typically it will end up being something or maybe meaning something for the sender, just going back to the source or sender. Not necessarily in all communications this is the way it goes. Sometimes things just end up at the receiver, sometimes things will just circle back to the sender, then the receiver becomes the sender and the processes start again. I'll be talking in these 3 videos about the who, how we encode messages and how we decode messages. And that's a very subjective part of human beings. So I'll talk about that because it is a very important part of communication that we all should be aware of. Then I'll also share some tips, some ideas on how to have discussions, what's the best way of doing them, when, etc. And then I'll also talk about feedback a little bit, how to give feedback, how to receive feedback in a way that we improve, our ways. We improve also our relationships with others. Anyway, yeah, communication is a process, but it is not always effective because there are often misunderstandings and conflicts because people don't verify if what was received as a message is what was intended as a message. So again, the encoding and the decoding, right, that we used, that comes from a very subjective perspective. And also sometimes the verbal or written communication doesn't match the non-verbal communication. Each of us relates and interacts with others from our own level of consciousness, from our own balance or inner imbalance. We relate from our particular way of experiencing and interpreting life and what surrounds us, from what we have learned and interiorized. And it is very important that every time you interact with other people, you keep this in mind. Sometimes the difference can be found in age. Sometimes the difference can be found in an economic context or background or studies, education, culture, different things, our own family experiences, so each of us is gonna interact from a different perspective. Let's say we all have glasses with different colors, and those are unique to us, and that's how we're gonna see things, and that's how we're gonna respond to things. Well, I told you communication is a process, and now I'll be deep diving into this how we encode, how we decode, and how we process and how we choose, how to code something, decode it, and so on. And this is very related to assumptions, because in the end, that coding, decoding has to do in, let's say, in common or just normal language. What I'm meaning is how we interpret things and the assumptions we make, right? Now, let's talk about each of us, the individuals, how things work in our brains, in our minds, And when we decide what to say, how to say it, what to respond, how to interpret things, how to make, or what assumptions we want to make or we are making, it all comes from something in psychology we call a belief system, which is an ideology or set of principles that helps us interpret our everyday reality. Now, this could be in the form of religion, political affiliation, values, philosophy, spirituality, among many other things. These beliefs are shaped and influenced by a number of different factors. That's why everybody's gonna have his or her own belief system. Of course, people that belong to the same family, have a similar experience or story of life, might have very similar belief systems, and it's not bad, it's not wrong, it's just the way it is. We have to be aware of this. How this works, okay? Let's think of me. I'm gonna be the one, just look at these circles, okay? The one in the center, it's core or central beliefs. In psychology, we'll say these are the most difficult things to change because this become part of my personality. I have assumed this as my own, as an identity that I have, okay? Then the next circle is called peripheral beliefs, and are just, they do come from these core central beliefs but are manifested in a different way, and I'll just explain you this in a little while. And the third one, so it's escalating, right? So I have this central belief or core belief. Then from this, from one of these, I get many peripheral beliefs. And in the end, you see me taking actions or coping strategies that respond to these peripheral beliefs and these core or central beliefs. Now let's go from the core beliefs to these actions or responses. The core or central beliefs typically have to do with the self-concept, with self-esteem, with self-discrepancy. Self-discrepancy is this idea that for me, the perception I have of myself, I have an actual self and I also have an ideal self. Then there is also self-efficacy, which has to do with how good I think that I am at doing some things, how efficient I am. That's a perception on myself again. Now, all these perceptions that I have about myself, whether it's about the concept, esteem, or my efficiency, this commonly start to be learned or developed during our childhood at early life stages. So the way someone's gonna start shaping his or her personality is the way it's by what we see in others, what we think is how others perceive us. Okay, so think of a mirror and you're a kid and you start to be told you're smart, you're kind, you're beautiful, you're funny, you're this or that. Then that you start to gather some ideas of who you are from what you hear and perceive on others. Okay, but it can be a good thing. It can also be a bad thing when what you hear is that you're useless, that you're stupid, that you are, I don't know, ugly, that you're different things, okay? But this, it's the way it is. Psychologists many times try to work with these core or central beliefs so we can pointed out, we can make them conscious, because this, most of the times, it's unconscious. It became automatic for us. Okay, we don't even question them. Unless you sit down with a professional and talk about it, you don't question them. You just think, this is the way it is. This is the way I am, you know? Okay, so once you have these core beliefs, then there are these peripheral beliefs, which are assessments, inferences, assumptions, rules or imperatives, anticipatory beliefs or tragic beliefs, self-perpetuation or compensatory beliefs. Now, let me just quickly try to explain some of these. So because I have this idea of myself, of what I am in the world and what the world, how things are, and I'm so sure about them, I make assumptions about people as well. So let's say an assumption could be, tall people are, I don't know, smart. I don't know, maybe in your family it turned out to be like that, and then you make that a rule, you know, or an imperative. Anticipatory belief will be, okay, if someone says this, at some point they're gonna do that, you know. So I start making conclusions, and I think, yeah, it's just a logical way of thinking, you know. To me, it's gonna make sense because I have these core beliefs. There's also self-perpetuation, which are when the things I choose to focus on are gonna reinforce what I already know or I already think. And well, now let's talk about the third circle, which is how do I implement this in my daily life? Okay, because so far these are all lots of thoughts and processes. So the way I end up expressing or manifesting these core beliefs and these peripheral beliefs is in the way of behaviors, responses, and coping strategies. And some are called cognitive distortions. I'll talk about them later in a while. Automatic thoughts. So I don't even question. I just, you know, if I see A, my answer is B. If I see C, then my answer is D. Because to me, it became so logical that it's already automatic. Negative attitudes, avoidance, tics, self-fulfilling prophecies, and habits. So this is basically how, in a simple way, of course, I'm putting it, how we react and how we come to think the things we do, you know. Now, I'll talk about these cognitive distortions that I mentioned in the third circle. Everybody distorts ideas or experiences. This is just the way it is, both consciously and unconsciously, to a greater or lesser extent, and these distortions are originated in underlying beliefs, as I just mentioned. Cognitive distortions are simple ways that our mind convinces us of something that isn't really true. These inaccurate thoughts are usually used to reinforce negative thinking or emotions, telling ourselves things that sound rational and accurate, but really only serve to keep us feeling bad about ourselves. By learning to correctly identify this kind of stinking thinking, a person can then answer the negative thinking back and refute it. And by refuting it, the negative thinking over and over again, it will slowly diminish over time and be automatically replaced by more rational and balanced thinking. It's also very important to learn about these cognitive distortions because that's going to give us very good information about ourselves, our past experiences, but it's also going to give us good information about others. You can at some point start identifying these cognitive distortions in others as well. Some examples of these cognitive distortions are filtering. We choose what we want to take, and that's what we are going to focus on. Polarized thinking, so we see things black and white, very extreme things. It's either this or that. They are not in between. Overgeneralizing or overgeneralizations. So you did something silly, you drop, I don't know, a plate or a glass or something, and it broke, and then you say, oh, I'm so stupid, right? Or someone said something and you go and say, you're always, you start using that always. Why are you like that? And maybe the person is not like that, but that's just what happens. I'm not stupid, I just broke a glass, but we overgeneralize. Jumping to conclusions very quickly, like you have seen only two facts, maybe one, and then you go from A to Z all the way. And then someone says, yeah, I didn't like what you did yesterday. And then you're already like, why do you hate me? Very, very extreme. Catastrophizing as well. So something happens and you think, oh my God, this is the end of the world, right? Something like those are tricks our mind plays on us. The shoots, right? I should have done this. We think we are perfect and we know how things had to be solved or what we had to do, and maybe we had done it this other way, this wouldn't have happened. That can also be a trick. Personalization, someone is saying something and you take it to your heart, right? Blaming, this is your fault, this is because you did this happens. And sometimes things just happen, and sometimes everybody's to blame. So the answer is not blaming, but just taking responsibility, just being accountable for things, and then putting up and making things work, making things better after that. Blaming is actually very hurtful, same as generalizing. Emotional rationalizing. I think, yeah, I feel this way, so probably what I'm thinking is right. I feel hurt, therefore what that person did was awful. Therefore what that person did was wrong. And we don't question, our core beliefs, etc., etc. The fallacy of change, that has to do with, oh yeah, if I do this, things are going to be different. When many times, yeah, you can have an impact to some extent, but others also are involved, and even variables that nobody controls, right? Then also thinking I'm always right when it's not possible, and others can also be right at times. And mind reading, you think, oh yeah, I bet she is thinking this, I bet he is thinking that, I bet this is how this person is feeling. And you can anticipate, oh yeah, if I do this, this is gonna happen. This fortune telling as well. Now, according to our experiences, learnings, expectations, and preferences, we establish different forms of bonding and communication. And typically it can be one of these three. Shyness, which is like, we'll say, this passive person that is always silent and avoids conflict and just just remains timid, etc. We have aggressiveness, so someone that is always like going around on you and just being very aggressive about things and getting upset so quickly. And then there is assertiveness. Okay, and assertiveness is defined as the honest, direct, and balanced communication style. So this is the preferred, this is what will be best for all of us. If we can get to this point, then at least we can, it's not that there won't be problems. It's not that reality is not gonna be bad. It's not that nothing, there are no guarantees on that, but at least we can find ways for us to react in the most helpful and productive way, and that will be assertiveness. Some characteristics of assertiveness are respectful and frontal dialogue to express and defend our rights and point of view through appropriate behaviors and body language, visual contact whenever possible, of course, firm voice, also when we're talking, the usage of verbal expressions that project self-respect. What's always important is, yeah, I'm saying it's going to be honest and direct. That's very important. But that doesn't go in detriment of respect. So because you want to be honest, you are not allowed, and you wouldn't be entitled to be disrespectful And that's not the way it is. One thing cannot go in detriment of the other one. Okay? Yeah, you have all right to be honest and direct, but also be respectful. Some examples of assertiveness are, I will feel better if there is something affecting me, and that is, I don't feel well, or I don't like it when, or also, when you do this or say this, I feel X or Y. Please don't do it again, or let's talk about it, please. This is being assertive. Something is happening, you're not expecting people to read your mind. You go and say it clearly, and also respectfully. There are some reasons why we choose not to be assertive and take self-sabotaging approaches instead. We could have learned some family communication patterns, and that's preventing us from growing, from improving. Also, not being aware of the benefits of an assertive style of communication, fear of disapproval and rejection, or even lack of training in assertive behaviors. And I think this happens a lot of time, and that's why professionals like psychologists are very relevant, also any counselor or anyone who has a good education or background on these things. And the last thing I want to mention, and I think this is actually the most important part of this all, I wanted to talk to you about something we call the ladder of inference, which describes the thinking process that we go through, usually without realizing it, to get from a fact to a decision or action. So let's start from the bottom, okay? We go all the way from the bottom to the top. And just keep in mind that each interaction has a subjective component. So let's say, and I'll give you an example, okay? I just explain it quickly, and I'll also do it or say it with an example so it gets clearer for you. So let's say there is the world and the observable things, information, and facts around me. Everything that's available, the available data, the reality. But then I take a step forward and I select information from what's available. Then, once I have done that, I add meaning or an interpretation to that information that I selected. I then make assumptions based on the meaning I gave it. One step forward, and I'm drawing conclusions. After that, I'm gonna adopt beliefs about things, rules, or generalizations. And once I have adopted beliefs, I'm gonna take actions based on my beliefs. We are not typically aware of this whole process every day in our interactions, but we go through all these steps. And this is what I was mentioning before, that results being an automatic thought or automatic thinking. I go from what I observe, and in my brain, this takes less than a second to reach to a conclusion or for me to take actions. So this most of the times is an unconscious process. With the help of a psychologist, if you are a person that struggles a lot with interactions and the way you're perceiving things, and you are struggling, you are feeling sad or hurt or based on interactions that you have with others, then a psychologist will try to help you see all of this. We have some tools to help you do that. So basically, the example I want to give you is this. Let's say I have a friend and we haven't spoken in a while, okay? I haven't reached out to her. She hasn't reached out to me. I'm at the mall and I see her somewhere there in the food court with someone else. And I think she just saw me. And I saw her, but she didn't even wave, at me. Okay, so this is the reality. The available data is we are there at the mall, the two of us. Now I select information. So I saw her and she was with someone else. And I think she saw me. So I start, let's just go up in this ladder, okay? So I'm like, okay, yeah, well, she saw me. Why didn't she wave at me? Why didn't she come to say hello? I start making assumptions. She saw me. I am sure she saw me. I think she saw me, right? And then I think, maybe she's talking about me. Maybe she's upset at me. And I start making a lot of conclusions in my mind. Okay, well, I guess we are not friends anymore. I guess we were not really friends to begin with, because that's not what friends do. So my beliefs could be something like, yeah, I really don't think that real friends exist. Just look at us. I thought we were friends. I thought we were best friends. And now she's just ignoring me. So yeah, I won't say hello to her back. I'll just ignore her and I won't look for her. If she doesn't call me, I won't call her. Look at all of the things that went in my mind, okay? And things could have been very different, and I'll explain you in just a little while as well. Now, how do I change my beliefs? Because sometimes my beliefs can be sabotaging. I already told you that, right? So how do I change my beliefs? I could start by questioning what I put in something we call the bag of evidence. And that's the information I select. Oh, and that is stating in Spanish. So I'll just translate that for you live. So when I question what information I'm selecting, also analyzing the origin of things in that bag as well as my own beliefs. I can analyze myself and think, okay, why, if someone didn't wave at me or didn't come to say hello to me, I took it so hard? When in my childhood, or when did I feel that maybe I'm not enough? There are a lot of things that go beyond this simple situation at the mall. So that's one thing. I can also challenge my conclusions. How? I can look for contradicting or challenging evidence. Okay, what if she actually didn't see me, but maybe she was just looking at something that's next to me, right? Looking for other explanations. Looking for contradicting or challenging evidence will also be like this. Like I say, yeah, well, but it doesn't make sense that I'm not her friend when she's always been there for me, when this person cares about me. I mean, just that now she didn't wave at me. Okay, so I have to challenge that belief that I was adopting already. They are not real friends, seriously. She hasn't cared about me before. So you go and find evidence that's contradicting to this that I'm adopting as evidence. Looking for other explanations will be what I just mentioned, that maybe she just saw something that was next to me, a window of a store. It wasn't maybe even me. Maybe actually she needs glasses, and hey, guess what? She wasn't wearing them. It happens all the time. Or maybe she was so focused on what she was saying to this other person that she was talking to, that just sometimes you just stare at the void and you keep talking, and you seem to be looking in some direction, but you are not really looking. So that could also be a simple explanation. Or you can just go and clarify and ask things directly. And that's one of the best things we can do, really. So let's say instead of getting to this action and making this conclusion that I'm not going to be talking to this person anymore, if she doesn't reach out, I won't do it. No, I was missing her. And seeing her reminded me of that. So I'll just text her next time and say, hey, how are you? I saw you at the mall the other day, but you were busy. How are things? Or I could even just ask very straightforward, hey, is there anything going on? Are you upset at me? Let's say you're just assuming that she's upset, right? Which you shouldn't be doing, but you could clarify it like that as well. Hey, did I upset you? I haven't seen you in a while. Is anything preventing you from doing so? Just like that. Go and clarify. My God, we make such a big deal out of things we in our heads are interpreting, Whereas sometimes we are right, but sometimes reality has nothing to do with what we were thinking, but because of our core beliefs and peripheral beliefs, etc. That's how we are seeing things. Our glass are stained, and we're seeing things like that. When in reality, things are different. A good advice that I can give you is um, always assume the best. And I have told some of you this already. If you know someone, you know this person likes you, she or he has said that you're friends, or in the context, this is a professional setting, etc., and someone said something and it got me upset. Well, let's not just explode right away, or let's not, if you are an aggressive kind of person, right, a reactive person. But if it could also be that you're shy, so you will just try to avoid conflict, and you will keep that assumption and that belief in your head, and you will start thinking, okay, these people are weird, they are not my friends, I cannot trust them. Just go and ask. And if you know some people, and if you have contradicting evidence, if you have evidence that they might be good people, that they care about you, then assume the best first as a first step. Then when you see a message that makes you feel bad because it went straight from the first step of the ladder to the last one to the top, it went very quickly, so you are just not feeling right about something. Instead of making an argument about things, assume the best, and say, okay, I'm gonna ask, what's this? Now, how do you change your beliefs as well? Sometimes it's not just doing this, sometimes you will need professional help as well, and that's what psychologists are there for. Now, there is another thing we call the reflexive loop, sorry. And it's basically that our beliefs, they are gonna influence or affect what we observe the next time and the information we are gonna select. Because I adopted this belief about friendship, about women, about female friends, sticking to this example of them all, right? Then next time I'm gonna be focusing on that. I'm gonna be paying attention if this person ignores me, if this person seems to be talking behind my back, just, and this is gonna in the end just make these beliefs stronger if I don't question them. Once you have selected information, and this is because I'm sorry, this is still in Spanish in the slide, um, we call that the bag of evidence. So basically, it's the information that I've selected and I choose to keep is gonna confirm my beliefs. I didn't select any other evidence. I didn't go and question it. I have this bag with evidence. And every time something like this happens, I'm going to just pull things from that bag, not from everything that's observable, not from the full reality. I already chose something. That's why it's so important to question what I put in that bag of evidence. This circle is going to go like this, like, okay, I selected information, now I have this bag of evidence, now I have a belief. This belief is going to influence what I'm going to take next time, what information I'm going to select. And it just goes on and on and on. And if you have something wrong in this equation, you're going to make lots of mistakes with different people. So again, just challenge your conclusions. Look for contradicting or challenging evidence. Look for other explanations. Clarify, assume the best intentions. And just let me go back to this. Just remember that we are not a computer. We are not a calculator. We don't have the perfect, generic, universal rules in our head. And so it's not that we have the perfect settings, okay? And it's also good to keep in mind that it's not just this belief system what affects or impacts the way we decide to process information, or the information we select and we choose to keep, or what we choose to focus on. But also, um, there are many physical things that affect us. So if you are in pain, if you're feeling sick one day and you're down, if you have a cold, if you haven't slept, guys, because sleeping, and I've told this to many of you, is such an important thing. It's like you inhabit this body, but this body is like, it's like a vehicle, okay, that needs gasoline, that needs water, that needs to go to the mechanic now and then. So also, if you're not even sleeping well, of course you're moody, of course maybe not moody, maybe you're sensitive. It just makes sense, it's just normal. So when you, and I'll talk about this in the next video that I'm gonna make about, when to have a conversation, a discussion, etc., when to avoid having them, because we can sometimes choose the time that's best for us. And so let me try to go back. Just keep this in mind. And also, there is a last message I wanted to share with you, and that I do share with my patients. Like sometimes I tell them, just don't trust everything you think. Don't trust everything you feel. Okay? Because of what I just mentioned, that sometimes we are in the wrong, right? And well, that's all I had for today. Next time I'll be talking about discussions, and hopefully in the following video it will be about feedback and some tips on this. If you have any questions, any comments, if you want more information, if you want reading materials, videos, whatever, let me know, because I have lots of those, okay? So if you find this helpful and if you want more, let me know. And thank you for watching. Bye-bye.